YouTube! I am so happy to see you guys. I really want to talk about bullying. I really hate to use bullying in a situation where we're talking about an adult, because then I see it more as harassment. And of course you can be bullied for basically anything, and you could simply say that bullying happens to people who are different. So the definition of bullying is, I almost said gerund, or present participle. I haven't said that in a long time. Seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. People view a lot of autistics as vulnerable. Does that mean that we actually are? I think that we can be. I think that sometimes, like in the times that I have experienced bullying, I usually caught it kind of off guard. Like I definitely did not see it coming. Sometimes I didn't recognize it. Like I didn't realize that it was bullying. So the issue here is that autistic people are clearly different. The way that we move, the way that we talk to people, the things that we talk about, basically everything about us kind of screams different. Even if we're masking, sometimes we're not that great at it, or we don't have enough energy to mask as well as we usually do, and they just kind of pick up on something being a little bit different. What I can say is the bullying usually happens with people that you have to be around for a certain period of time. So it could be your family, friends that you hang out with a lot, your team, like if you play basketball or volleyball, co-workers. These are people who usually have enough time to kind of examine you. You also have an opportunity to be just as perceptive. However, the thing that kind of sets the bully apart is that they'll actually act on those sort of weaknesses. What it really requires is a sort of awareness of how people are treating you and paying really close attention to that, and actually trying to nip it in the bud as best you can. So what does nipping it in the bud look like? I'm sure you know, telling someone to stop. That's what they tell you in all the kid videos about bullying. But that sometimes makes it worse, and that sometimes is not safe to do, etc. So what can you do? Well, if it is at work, you need to talk to HR. You can go through the proper channels, but if your managers think it's funny, or they don't take it seriously, you can go to their boss, because this is harassment. Another thing I would do is document everything in the same way that you would file a police report. Time and date and location of what happened, and you really want to be specific with how it happened, what they said specifically, if you can remember the quotes. There are certain laws and stuff against recording people. Audio recording, I don't really know the states where it's legal, and also you don't want to be invasive of someone else's privacy. Like if they're not consistently bullying you or harassing you, you know, maybe that's a step too far, because you can kind of get worked up with like kind of going overboard. Like that's something that you can easily go overboard with. When you have 3 or 4 cases that you have written down and you take it to a manager, or you take it to HR, or you know, even general managers, whoever, you take it to them, and then they know that you're serious. They're like, okay, it must be really bad for you to document this, and you have several instances. Always be aware of the time if you need to have a watch, whatever the case, because you don't want to be in a situation where you can't get to your phone for 30 minutes and now you're kind of off with the time. So that is how you would professionally handle bullying. And that is one way that you can nip things in the bud, is to have a very open conversation with your managers. And luckily at one of my jobs, the management team took it so very seriously, especially because I was a good worker. I was always respectful, and I had actually gotten really worked up, and they knew that something must have been really wrong, because I was always in a pretty good mood when I was there. Just know that that ladder, that hierarchy goes all the way up. So your boss has bosses. If there's bruises or anything like that involved, take pictures. Like, do not hesitate. You know, evidence is everything. So how would you handle this without having to go to a boss or whatever? You know, like in your personal life, when you have to stand up for yourself, let me just tell you, I'm not too great with comebacks. Now, some of you guys are really good with comebacks. Sarcasm, bluntness. See, the thing is here, I want to show you is that we all are able to stand up for ourselves, but you may not be aware of the different ways that you can stand up for yourself, because on TV they say, oh, snappy comebacks, that'll really shut someone down. But there are so many different ways to shut someone down, or like, disarm them. There are so many different ways to disarm someone who is coming at you like that. So let's talk about it, right? So I'm not very good with comebacks. I've gotten much better over the years. I don't know what happened. I was always really good at saying random stuff. Like, I used to say really hurtful things, but then I kind of was told, like, you can't just say really mean things to people. And that is definitely the autism. And I don't mean like I was trying to hurt their feelings, but I would just say the first thing that came to my mind. And so now that I've gotten my autism diagnosis, and I'm kind of like just trying to go back to who I was really. Now I just kind of am more likely to say the things that I just want to say. My comebacks have gotten better because I just don't hold back anymore. It just has worked out for me. But when I was not good at doing comebacks, I was really good at disengaging. Is it disengaging? Yeah. Disengaging, like, so sort of separating myself from the situation. There was this one job where I was actually mistreated a lot of it went over my head. I slowly got better at disarming some of the people, and it took me like a year to do so, because I was just so afraid. I was like, I barely talked, I didn't understand, like the whole extreme selective mutism sort of thing. I just could not deal with the bullying anymore. And so each person was different because I was getting bullied by multiple people, actually. This one person always, every time this person got the chance, would say something rude to me, would roll their eyes, would make me feel insignificant. And when I made mistakes, they blew it all out of proportion. You know what? Forget it. I was this whole inside joke. And there were like a few people who were very kind to me despite how I was being treated. And it's just this whole thing, like that's a whole different YouTube video, but essentially I gained the courage to disarm the bullies. I noticed that ignoring it didn't work. I noticed that being nice didn't work. So I started being passive aggressive. And I don't know if this is appropriate. Like, is it okay for me to give you guys this advice? Because it seems a little bit, like, angsty. Like, it feels like retaliation, I guess. The only reason I thought it was so important to make this video is because a lot of the time people are unapologetic, I'm sorry. A lot of people are not going to apologize for the way that they treat you. And they don't see anything wrong with it. And it's so damaging to a person to be treated like that, especially consistently. You just gotta realize how much that can hurt you and the things that it can lead to. There are so many instances where there's just been so much pain that was caused by a person who was just hurting so badly. And of course, you know, you think, what would drive them to it? But, you know, it can start out really, really small. You know, it's important to stand up for yourself. And it's something that you absolutely have to learn how to do, especially as an autistic person, because this can continue into your adulthood, because we don't really typically get this naturally. And if we do, it's delayed. You know, people were standing up for themselves when I was like in second grade, and I didn't learn until I was like out of high school. I told you I started being passive aggressive. So he would speak to me sometimes, and I would pretend not to hear him. God, this is so bad. It's not bad. It's really not bad because of how bad, like, the number of nights I went home crying. Then, of course, it was another guy, and he would just, like, stare at me. Like, just, like, stare. Like, I would turn around, and he'd just be, like, glaring at me, and I'd be like, are you okay? And I would, like, turn into a joke. And he would be like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. I would just ask him. He would do it all the time. I'd just be like, you good, bro? Like, are you okay? I think that what really helps is kind of being able to joke about it. What that does is it kind of takes you out of the situation. You can kind of step outside of that and kind of see that the person who's talking to you is either hurting or insecure, unhappy. And you just kind of say, I can handle this, you know? And then you kind of come back and you say, well, that wasn't very nice. It kind of throws them off because what they really want is a reaction. It's so interesting, but it's also the nicest way to respond. You didn't give them what they wanted. And it's really important to remember that they're trying to get something from you. All they want from you is to hurt you. Don't give it to them, or at least don't let them see that you gave it to them. Do not let them see. It's definitely strong to be able to manage your emotions. Like, most people just kind of let their emotions fly out, and anger and rage and insecurities getting flung onto other people, you know? But it takes so much strength to hold that inside and still be a compassionate person. And so that's what I really want you guys to know is that, you know, you're going through this stuff. Use it as strength, sort of build armor, you know, over time. And this isn't something that happens overnight, and this is not something that you need to pressure yourself with. It takes so much time. And then a lot of you guys have already gotten to that point where you're just fed up. And when you're fed up, you have to make the right decisions, because it's very possible you could make the wrong decision, and you don't want to do that. You want to be so in control of yourself and kind of take a break and make the right decisions. I highly recommend reading books about this, watching videos about this. I watched Charisma on Command for a very long time. Brightside has it's so silly. Brightside has some videos about psychology and body language. So helpful for people on the spectrum. Even though it's not necessarily made for people on the spectrum, these body language videos have helped me so much to realize what's going on in my environment, because I had no idea the things I was missing out on and the cues that other people are aware of, having to do with people facing you and what it means. If they're facing away from you, that means that they're disinterested. And this is something that we don't realize on our own. And so we have to sort of teach ourselves these things, help us recognize bullying early on, because that's when you want to act on bullying. But of course, you need to watch some videos on appropriate responses, because I know that I can have very inappropriate responses to how someone is treating me. I think that's all I have for you guys today. I hope that this video was a little bit more helpful and a little bit more insightful, I guess. Bullying's really tough. It's really hard to deal with it, and it takes a lot of practice standing up to it, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of studying. So if you are on the autism spectrum, or you just found my page randomly, or you just enjoy watching my videos, please do leave a like and subscribe. And I really appreciate you guys. You guys are absolutely fantastic. And I think that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and bye.